Commissioner Jim Donelon pushes insurance reform ahead of the spring legislative session.
But as Sabrina Wilson reports, critics say what Donelon supports would hurt property owners.
We're currently in the midst of an insurance crisis.
And Insurance Commissioner Jim Donelon believes passing new state laws will help attract more insurers to Louisiana's property insurance market.
We need insurance companies to come back to Louisiana, and this is the best way to get it done. While we are not copying what Florida did legislatively, we are taking the lead in an effort to introduce several legal and claims process reforms that should strengthen our market for the long term.
One of the bills Donelon is pushing gives insurers more power in terms of dealing with policyholders who make claims.
Insurers would be allowed to require a sworn proof of loss statement from the policyholder to establish such proof of loss. The bill also adds a 2-year statute of limitations for policyholders to seek penalties and attorney's fees for untimely payment of claims.
Another bill would impact policyholders who want to assign their benefits to a contractor.
We're also proposing legislation that would prohibit property insurance policyholders from assigning their benefits to third parties like roofing contractors without their company's approval. Assignment of benefits has been used by bad actors to commit insurance fraud.
Donelon also wants changes dealing with appraisals.
Our bill outlines the qualifications and duties for appraisers and umpires, something needed as well, and prohibits one-sided communication between the umpire and any one party without giving the other party an opportunity to participate, and other reforms as well.
Ben Riggs is executive director of Real Reform Louisiana. He says the group will fight to keep the proposed changes from becoming law, and he takes issue with Donelon saying the proposed reforms are not a carbon copy of what Florida is doing.
We don't need to be copying what Florida is doing. We need to be doing what we can to address our insurance crisis. We don't need legislation that's written by the insurance industry that's going to hurt consumers.
Donelon says he will fight any attempt by insurers to have the legislature remove the rule that says if a policyholder has been with an insurer for 3 years, they can't be dropped willy-nilly.
I will be active in whatever efforts are made to water down or repeal the 3-year rule that I feel is so important.
Donelon also wants Louisiana citizens, the state's insurer of last resort, immunized against bad faith penalties, but he backs a bill that would prevent insurers from including clauses that prohibit the use of public adjusters. Now, Ben Riggs says there's legislation that would better serve Louisianans, including bills to increase insurance companies' transparency and prevent them from passing on the cost of national TV ads to policyholders.